Welcome to another episode of Beyond the Game, where we highlight the community leaders that are impacting our city, our state, and everything in between. Today, I'm your host, Stephen Hayes, and I'm joined with a pioneer, so to speak, someone who has done it all, seen it all, has a plethora of accolades, and we could spend the entire show listing them. And I'm just thankful for her to come on here. We have CEO of Detroit Future City, Anika Goss. Anika, how are you today?
Thank you so much for having me, Stephen.
No problem. Thank you for being here. And I was doing my homework, and I reached out to you personally because I was intrigued, obviously, with everything that you're doing. But I also wanted to speak with you because you are one of the pillars in what Detroit wants to look like, what we want Detroit to
hmm
look like, what we want Detroit to be, right? And everything that you're doing is not only great and it's meaningful and it's going to impact my children and the children of the future, but everything that you're doing is so meaningful now because you've been doing it for such a long time, but the way you're doing it is really making an impact and it's really making a change. And I wanted to get your thoughts and talk more about it. We're going to do a quick but deep dive into
Okay,
your background. So let's
goodness.
start with the passion. Where did it come from
Okay.
for you?
hmm
How the way you see Detroit, the way you want Detroit to be seen? How did
Yeah.
that start?
Um, well, thank you for all of that. First of all, let me just say, when you're in the work, you don't really think about it. You just kind of do it and get it done. So I'm a third generation Detroiter. I have a lot of family here. A huge family that's in Detroit. Some of them came up, even my father's family, who's from Tennessee, uh, migrated here. So my father grew up in Knoxville, Tennessee, and
Okay.
but his family also ended up moving. A lot of them ended up moving here to Detroit eventually. But my grandmother moved to Detroit in 1936 from Alabama. And so as a girl, we moved around a lot
Mm-hmm.
to a number of different cities and spent the majority of our time in the Bay Area in Oakland, California.
Okay.
And but coming here, so from a very, very early age, I was made to feel like I was from three places: Oakland, Knoxville, Tennessee. So I feel like I'm a Knoxville descendant because I spent half of my summer there, and the rest of my summer was always here in Detroit. So I know Detroit. I took the bus with my grandmother to Eastern Market, and we would come here at Christmas and go to Hudson's, and she lived on Mendota when I was a little girl, and we would Mendota in 96 where the freeway ends. So.
Oh, they're not the
um,
lodge. Okay.
not the lodge, yeah,
Okay.
the one that was closer to Southwest. I remember swim mobiles. I wasn't allowed to get in the swim mobile because my grandmother always said it was nasty water. But we did that. I rode bikes all through the street. Like this was I felt very, very connected. And so when I came to school at Michigan, when I chose to go to graduate school at Michigan, living and then getting married and having children, living in Detroit felt very, very easy for me.
hmm
It never felt like, I mean, Detroiters can be Detroiters. I didn't go to high school.
Right. Right. Right.
So so now I don't have a Tech or Renaissance cred, but I know every single street. I've been on every single street in Detroit, and I know it. I think I probably learned from my grandmother, um, Black people are not people to be afraid of,
hmm
right? Even if they
Yes.
look like something is amiss, that may not be your business if they're doing something that
Right.
they
Right.
shouldn't be doing. Like maybe you don't
Right.
need to go over there at that time, but you would not never be afraid of your own people. I did learn that from my grandmother. And I feel like that simple concept of loving us in a city, I think is what drives my own passion that Detroit should be the greatest Black city in the United States.
I agree. And everything, so I have four small children. And one of the things that my wife wants to always include and make sure is that they see and understand the beauty of Detroit.
Hmm.
Obviously we would, we want them to see Michigan, but there's a dedicated day that we have. We have a whole to-do list of things in Detroit that she
Yeah.
always wants them to see. And one of the things with you with Detroit Future City, I think that resonates so well with me and a lot of others is I saw your TED Talk.
Okay.
I saw your TED Talk. I did my research and it resonated with me how, the often thought process is you have to go to the suburbs to see, trees and to see, beautiful land and
Arts.
things,
Yep.
parks,
Hmm.
stuff like that. And if you see anything like that in Detroit, it's abandoned. It's a park that hasn't been kept well and things of that nature. And for you, that is something that you want to make sure that Detroit is not overlooked. Detroit is not a
Right.
last resort, right? Detroit is beautiful. And I always said, I love sports. And, obviously when the Lions or the Pistons or anyone, the Red Wings, Tigers are playing well, then everyone wants to rep Detroit. Everyone wants to say, they're from Detroit.
Yeah.
But obviously, when that is not happening, and when the Lions had terrible seasons, and when the Pistons were going through turmoil, no one wants to rep Detroit. So for you, repping Detroit, so to speak, is all day, every day. It's something that is tried and true. And when we get guests, when we get out of towners and things of that nature, they want a Detroit shirt. They
That's
want
right.
something that says they were in Detroit, not necessarily Farmington or anything else, for that meant, but Detroit. And we always get that question. Uh, when you say you grew up in Detroit, someone asks you what part or where you from,
Where are you from?
because they want to make sure that you're actually saying you're from Detroit.
Yeah.
So I appreciate you for instilling this, and I appreciate you taking on this journey. You've been at it for a very long time, but I wanted to talk to you about this current generation, this current state that we're in. And obviously, so with the economic development and the
Mhm.
workforce development here in Michigan, here in Detroit, how do we move forward with this current and next generation with the way Detroit looks?
Mm. Like what needs to be
Yes,
done?
I'm sorry. Yes,
Yeah.
what needs to be done?
So I feel like there's some really interesting things at play. And I'm really, really optimistic and excited about the new administration. Um, and that's not to say anything about the
Right.
Duggan administration, because I feel like he was the right mayor for the right time. We could not, we needed a Mike Duggan to be able to carry us through
Yes.
bankruptcy, three mayors in a year and a half, all of the bottoming out that happened in Detroit. We needed some of that. We needed a Mike Duggan that wasn't really that focused on. He just wanted to make Detroit better. He
Right.
was less concerned about who was doing it and where they were doing it. Detroit as a whole needed to be better, and I feel like he got us there. And but this administration, I feel like coming after this is going to make sure that the whole city can benefit from all of these new wins that we had over the past 13 years or
Absolutely.
10 years. And I'm very excited about that. I but I do feel that a few things are necessary. I think like one of the things that are missing that I really want my that I'm going to ask my team to try to help figure out is the mayor just announced 1,000 new houses in Detroit. I feel like we're not talking about housing enough. There is a
Yes.
housing crisis in the United States,
Yes.
and Detroit is a part of that crisis. And I think the analysis, and we've just put out 3 reports on housing, and we're going to put out a couple of more on mortgages and how banks are actually investing. But I also feel like we are missing the number, the concrete number on the housing shortage. We know statewide there's 100,000 housing shortage. There are
Yes.
100,000 housing units that we're missing. I'm sorry, can you hear that background noise?
No, no.
Oh, okay, great. Sorry. There are 100,000 units. We don't know what that number is in Detroit.
Right.
And so I feel like that is going to be really important. And it's not just whatever that number is, I'm going to assume it's somewhere in the area of 20,000 if or 20 to 25,000 if the entire state is 100. It could be more, right?
Right.
Because
Right.
it's the largest population. Not all of that housing is going to be low income affordable housing. It can't be. And
Exactly.
and that is one of my big issues is that when we think about economic development and economic opportunity, we have to be thinking about how Detroiters can fully participate in every single economic opportunity, and that it doesn't just create jobs, but that it creates careers. It
Yes.
creates thriving wealth for families,
Yes.
right? And that there are all kinds of other things that reverberate from that. So, entrepreneurship and investments and all of these other things that come along with having enough money to be stable
Yes.
and then be able to grow your wealth for you and your family. And I feel like we can't do that with one-off projects or, let's take on this really small thing because because it's doable. And then
Right.
we just
Right.
try to do 1,000 little things. That's not how it's done. And quite frankly, that's not how other turnaround cities are doing it. Other turnaround cities are saying, we're going to recreate this entire thing. We're going to create the
Right.
entire Baltimore harbor and let that economic development reverberate throughout Baltimore. And we're going to make it inclusive so everybody can live here, right? You have to actually, and I think, we have to be able to, we have to be willing to say that it's okay if people who are making money continue to make money, but that as long as people who are not making money are not a trickle down, but that are on a fast track to also creating wealth.
And that is huge. That is one of the main pillars of what I see driving and moving Detroit forward. Obviously, with this next generation and the way things are going, I have a lot of family. I talk with my nieces, my nephews, and some are getting ready to go graduate high school, go to college. And oftentimes I hear, and we'll have a talk, and they'll say, "Well, I want to go somewhere out of state. I want to go, blah blah blah." And
Yeah.
I'll ask them, have you explored Detroit? Have you seen Detroit? But to them, their mindset is, "Oh yeah, I've seen Detroit because I've been here, been there." No,
Yeah.
that younger generation has to find something here, like you talked about with the housing shortage and everything like that. That has to be something that they have something to look forward to. Because if not, they pack up, they leave. Obviously, Detroit thrives when the younger generation, the entrepreneurs, the economy, everything is thriving. But like you said, it is okay for the ones who are making money to make money. But that also has to resonate and it has to move past that. It has to translate to the next generation.
That's
Because
right.
if you don't see yourself here, if you don't see yourself having a future in Detroit, and you see yourself saying, okay, I'm going to pack up and move to Indiana or wherever you want to, start your family, wherever you want to start your career, if you feel like there are better career choices, then that's on us. That's our job to make sure that
Right.
Detroit is pushing the envelope to make sure that happens. So for you, everything that you've seen thus far, everything that you've been through, what is and I want to talk about this as far as this is part of that question. You grew up, you said in Cali, the Bay Area. What was that different? Well, Tennessee as well. So, what was that difference for you between the three? Coming from Cali,
Well,
coming from Tennessee, coming to Detroit. Like, how did that look in your mind every time you came?
that's really interesting. I mean, that's a really good question. I think I loved growing up in California. Like, I only have fond memories, childhood memories of being in the Bay Area. And um, it was so diverse, it was so accessible. And when I say accessible, because there was public transportation, I could get
Hmm.
around on my own at 12 on the BART on public transportation.
Which is crazy to think about now.
I know. And it was fine. I was fine. It
Right,
was
right.
fine. Um, I was independent. I learned how to be independent and I learned how to, I mean, I obviously come from a very privileged middle class family. So I did not grow up in a Tupac Oakland,
Right,
right?
right.
I grew up in a much more stable environment. Um, but it was, kids that I went to school with Asian kids and Guyanese. We had a whole Guyanese family. It was so diverse and so accessible, but it was also so Black in this beautiful way because it was the birthplace of the Black Panthers. So we celebrated Blackness as children in a beautiful, beautiful way with food and art and parties and celebratory activities. It felt like all the time, like there was always something happening. That is my, young
Right,
person
right.
uh, memory. And then even as a teenager, um, it's close. Oakland is a small community. It's like 300,000 people, 400,000, something like that.
Hmm.
It's small, right?
Yes.
And you know it, but it's beautiful and you know everyone. So it's a very different thing. When I graduated from college, I really wanted to move back. And Oakland at that time, the Bay Area at that time was just on the cusp of the tech boom.
Hmm.
And I remember my mother saying, you should not come back here. You should you should go to Detroit or go someplace else. And uh, she was right. That made me sad.
Hmm.
I felt like I would have had a whole different life. I wouldn't have had the children that I had if I stayed in the Bay. Um, But now that was very different. Like the pace and the people are very, very different than Knoxville. And Knoxville is where I learned to love the South and where I learned to love, um, where I learned how the beauty of our roots as African Americans and how distinctive that is. My father's, because that East Tennessee, they're part Native
Right.
American, they're part Cherokee from the Virginia Band Cherokees that came through
Okay.
there. And that is a part of who we are, right? Like you learn that being Black is distinct and beautiful. It's also very painful with a painful history. There's a reason that we all look the way we look, right?
Yes.
Because
Yes.
we are a part of the African diaspora and the slave trade, and we all look very different. My daughter is very, very light skinned with blonde hair. I and I don't know why. Her father is a dark-skinned Black man. It just happens, right? Like you
Right.
don't know what you're gonna get
Right.
because we are unique in this way. And I feel like I learned the food ways of Black people, to appreciate us in all colors and forms and mixes and blends. All of that is who we are. I feel like I learned the root of that in the South.
Okay.
And and then and so being here, um, coming here and working in Detroit, I've had every opportunity to live other places. I could
Right.
have lived in New York when I was at Lisk for all those years. They wanted me to move to New York. I was a vice president and worked for National Lisk.
And that
I
was for over 25 years, right?
18. No, I was only
18.
there for
18.
18 years.
Okay.
Um, I was there for 18 years and I chose to live here. That Detroit was my home. And I would fly to New York and work there or fly wherever they sent me
Right.
all week, but I would come home to Detroit.
Really?
Mhm. Yeah, I did that for a really long time. So I feel like the grit, the history, the the auto plant culture um is really what shapes what we see of Detroit now in so
Right.
many different
Yes.
ways. The work
Yes.
ethic, the ability to own your own home and do other things to support your family, like own a boat, go on vacation, have a cabin up in Idlewild. All of that stems from being solidly middle class and growing
Yes.
for your family. And even if you were going to put it in work perspective, um, when we do a lot of work in the heirs property work, which is tangled title. So the
Yes.
idea of, your grandmother's left you a house, you think your grandmother's left you a house, but she never actually changed the deed. She dies, she doesn't have a will, and now the house is in probate, and you think you own the house. You might even be living
Right.
in the house. So now that is called an heirs property.
Okay.
And one of the reasons we have so many of those here in Detroit, we have 2,500 that we know of
Really?
property in Detroit. Yeah. It's
Wow.
valued at almost 5,500 properties. I'm sorry. 5,500 properties valued at almost 300 million in real estate.
Wow.
But the reason is that there was a time when these streets were filled with home ownership.
Yes.
Our families owned these homes and they tried to pass them on, unfortunately, not legally, to their
Right.
children.
Right.
Right. But that is a part of the culture here. That is a
Right.
part of it. And it's rooted in that grit of automotive. And what I admire, like the difference between my parents, my dad being a Southern boy from
Right.
Knoxville, and I love seeing that. It warms my heart and that's how I was raised by this Southern man. And then my mother is a street smart Detroit girl from the West Side, right? She's elegant and lovely and beautiful, but she's also not here to play, right? She's not,
Absolutely.
we're not.
Absolutely.
Right. You are not going to play with her. She sees stuff immediately. Don't play cards with her. Even if she tells you it's fine, she always has a card in her sleeve. We call her West Side Carol.
Oh my goodness. West Side Carol. I like that name, West Side Carol.
So that's a part that is part of it. That's the beauty, I think, of us.
And that the reason I asked that question and you gave such a great unique answer because you come from three different backgrounds. You come from three different so while, I encourage anyone to do what they want to do and see the world and, travel abroad, however they choose to see how to choose to do it. If you are here in Detroit, I don't want anyone, including myself, like I don't want anyone to think you said it best. Like this is the last resort. Like I
Right.
don't want anyone to look and they say, okay, well, this is
I don't have
I,
anywhere else
I
to
don't I don't
go,
have anywhere
so.
else to go, so I'll be
Mhm.
here. Right. Now I grew up southwest side of Detroit.
Okay,
I
okay.
grew up southwest side of Detroit. I was 5 minutes away from Mexican town.
Hmm.
Um, and my mother, my great uncle, I've always, we see all these empty lots, and they remember a time when there was a business on every corner. They
That's right.
remember a time when, there was thriving businesses. My mother would tell me when her and her best friend were 8 or 9 years old, and my grandfather would send them to the store. And I would look at her and I'm say, "What do you mean?" And she's like, "Yeah." She said, "Because you could do that. Because you had the neighbors who would look out for you. The store was up the street. Nobody was going to bother you. It was a community-based situation. Everything that you did was in the community." My mother instilled that in us. My mother and my father, when the blackout happened, and my mother, everyone in the area that we live, she got a hold. She sent me and my brother. She said, "Go to everybody's house and find out who has a gas stove." And we
Mm.
went and we found out nobody did, but we did.
Oh,
So
wow.
what my mother did was she started making food for the whole neighborhood. So we literally would come outside. I have it's for me and my siblings, it's eight of us total. So
Wow.
yeah, we would come out, me and my brother would come outside and we would sit on our porch and my mother would literally send word to each neighbor, this is what time dinner is. It was something, it was either hot dogs, it was beans, whatever it was that we had in our, because you obviously wasn't going to buy anything. So when we had a deep freezer, she kept a deep freezer.
You're
So it
right.
was, she still has a deep freezer to this day. She kept a deep freezer and she would bring everything out. She would make sure it was thawed out because it was hot and you knew it was going to thaw. And we cooked all this food and we started sharing it with the neighbors. The reason I bring all that up is because to me, growing up, that is a pillar of Detroit. It is the
Hmm.
grit, it is the grind, it is the help in the community, it is the work. It's not necessarily workforce development, but it is the working together.
Oh, yeah.
It is the working together that brings the community together. And half these neighbors, Anika, at the time, we might have played with their children, but we didn't really know them. And
Right.
we're knocking on a door and we're going and
And it's
here's
dark.
it's dark. So we're walking up the street with flashlights. We're knocking on a door with food. Here you go. My mother said, if this continues, breakfast will be at such and such time.
Oh,
And that's literally, and she told me, she said, well, this is how I was brought up. She said, and
yeah.
there's no other way to do it. So none of those neighbors, the houses are pretty much going on that block. My mother's house is still standing, corner house. And she has, as opposed to moving, she has constantly put investment in the house. So as opposed to saying what she wanted to see in a suburban home, she put it into her own home, and it sits right there on the corner. And it's a white picket fence. Everything that she asked for, everything that she wanted, she put it in her home right there in the city of Detroit.
Yeah.
And everything that you're doing is to me to bring not only bring that back, but push it forward. Just that community, just that neighborly vibe to be able to come here and it's not Southern hospitality. I don't know how to necessarily
It's
explain it, but it's
community.
community, you
It
know?
is community. And I hope those vacant lots can become gardens, you know,
Yes.
and or some sort of green space installation to be able to help the people whoever is left on that block. And it's really interesting because when I first came to Detroit Future City, um, what people pushed back on me a lot or insisted was um okay, what they really, there was a bit, it was so contentious during the strategic framework
Hmm.
process. And I wasn't here for that. So I was still at List when that happened. But there was a part of at that time, there was like 50 square miles of vacant land.
Hmm.
And the plan that what's in the strategic framework is that we should be creating green spaces in all of these areas. And it was recommended that part of part of these places should be left for green space and not redeveloped and should be low density. And we should also move people to places
Hmm.
that are more dense. And people, I guess, were flipping tables and highly upset because it was really it was the way it was presented was really
It was like a blind
disrespectful.
side.
I mean, it was disrespectful. People were like, "What? I live here." Like you're
Right, right,
right? Like there might only be three houses left on this block, but we not moving. We've been here for 30
right,
years,
right,
40 years. Why should I move?
right.
And just wasn't taken into consideration. Um, and then they tried to argue with me that, the city can't afford the infrastructure for 2 million people. So like all of the sewage lines and,
Hmm.
if they decommission, only to find out later that the cost to decommission doesn't outweigh like having to move people,
Right, right.
So I I didn't know all of that. And when I came here, I come from community and economic development. I didn't even understand most of what people were talking about when I
Right.
first started at DFC. But what I did know is that if you are already living in a place, in a house, no one should tell you you have to move. We
No.
did that already. We did that with Pole Town, where we forced people to move, and it didn't
Yes.
work out. There is no reason why we should do that again. Absolutely no reason. And I stood on that. I wasn't even sure if I was right or if it was true, but I think that idea that there could be more that happens in these neighborhoods that have tracts of land because some of it you might be able to get two houses on these
Hmm.
lots, right?
Yeah.
Okay, maybe. Most of it is too small. It's 1 to 3 lots anyway.
Right.
It's too
Right.
small to develop. So, but you need to do something with it. And you can't
Absolutely.
expect the city to do something with it. So that's what we're hoping that people will do if they're living in a neighborhood, and we want to be able to support anybody who's living in a neighborhood that needs support with designs or gardens or whatever that might look like.
And Anika, again, you're doing such great work. And I could literally have a conversation with you all day because
Oh,
there's
thank
so
you.
much to tackle. But I clearly have something that I was instilled in me. And however, your mom, your dad, obviously you have both sides of it. Southern hospitality, West Side Carol. You have both, you have both sides of it to be able to speak from experience, right?
Thank you.
And I want to, before we end this, I want to ask you. I always asked our guests, I always asked everyone, like, what are the thoughtful words that you could leave for the next generation to encourage them. But I want to take it a step further for you. Not only do I want to ask you what are your thoughtful words that you could leave for the next generation, to current and next generation, to encourage them. That is one part of it. But the second part of it is, what are your thoughtful words of encouragement that you could leave to the current and next generation about Detroit?
Hmm.
So the floor is yours.
Um, Detroit is theirs. It might be hard to see that right now, right? It might
Mhm.
be hard to see that right now because there are a lot of old people in seats that are making decisions and making power moves. Um, but we need the energy, the creativity, the investment opportunity that young people bring to live in the city, to be a part of what Detroit will look like in the future. One of the things that I think people should be to always keep in mind is, and I feel like this is such a uniquely Detroit, very, very, and I'm going to say this and I don't know how people will feel about it. Um, as much of Detroit is still 75% Black
Hmm.
in population. The wealth is largely white, to be quite honest. It still very much is. And as the higher the wealth goes, the whiter it gets. And the power of who is actually making power decisions in Detroit is also largely white.
Hmm.
It's a fact. However, I believe that one of the unique, having worked in cities all over the country,
Right, right.
um, one that model that all of the power and the wealth is at the top is very, very white. That's not new, right? And it's not
Hmm.
news for anywhere, any city. I think what is unique is because of the population here, we are not controlled and we have a distinct relationship with power and wealth that other cities don't have. It's unique. It's unique. I go to other cities and the same players with different names
Right, right.
are doing the exact same kind of business, economic development for the greater good. We're doing this for the people, and everybody is white. No one, there might be two or three Black people in the room.
Hmm.
In Detroit, that same scenario is very, very clear that they also have to deal with Black people, that Black people will question their decisions if they're not if they don't feel like they're involved, and that we are vocal about that.
Right.
Like the white people here, our white people are very clear that this is a Black city and that that makes us unique. So I feel like there's this interesting dynamic that is that we are that we take for granted for our position as Black people. I hope I'm making sense. Our position as
No,
Black
I understand what you're
people
saying.
in here in United States, but also in the world, that's a very powerful position that we have, that we stand alongside, that we can influence world leaders, billionaires, the Fords, the GMs, the Stellantis, the Rocket Financial, Penske, all of those folks that are billionaires investing in this city. It's their money, right? But they are investing in this city.
Right.
They are very, very clear that we are doing this together.
Yes.
And I feel like we take that for granted. That is not happening in other cities.
I
I
agree.
promise you, it is not. Other cities could give two X's about what Black people, brown people think about what's happening. Maybe Minneapolis, because, it's Minneapolis. They're cool like that. And even then, I think people might question. I feel like there is a unique opportunity for young people in particular, and young people that have this new economy mindset that, are moving
Mm-hmm.
into tech and to the creative sectors and to business and entrepreneurship, that have a whole different way of thinking about wealth, that they could come to Detroit. The white people, the older white people that are making these kinds of investments, who are they
Mm-hmm.
most excited about? Is somebody wealthy that's also Black, that looks like
Yes.
us. They get so excited about that, right? They want a parade, right? Oh my God,
Right.
so and so is interested. Whoever it is, whatever they're doing, they
Right.
want to come
Right.
and be with us. They want that. So if you're young and you are making money in Silicon Valley, you're already a venture capitalist, a tech investor, you're doing something big. I think coming to Detroit, it'll be bigger than you could ever imagine. I believe that.
This is why I asked you the difference in the question because I knew what your answer. I didn't know what your answer would be, but I knew your answer would give me something that I wanted to hear, but also I knew would help the younger generation and the current generation. And I think speaking from your experience has two sides of that coin. Your experience is one thing. Your work, everything that you've done, from your bachelor's at Purdue to your master's in Michigan, everything that you've done, but your passion, the look in your face, the tone in your voice, everything is real.
Mhm.
And one thing about Detroiters, we're gonna snuff out the fake. And if it's fake, we are not going to mess with it. And it don't
Right,
matter what it is. It could be clothes, it could be whatever it is. If it's not real, if it's not authentic, we will know and we will tell you that it's not real and it's not
right. That's
authentic.
right.
And this is something not I was excited to do this interview more personally, honestly. I was a little selfish about this one, but I was
Oh,
excited to do this interview, but it's something that I want not only my children to look at, I want my nieces, my nephews, and anyone coming up. Our audience we've gravitated and trained our audience to this work in economic development, because we wanted the younger people to help and understand.
yeah.
So 1,000 times over, I thank you for your time. I thank you for your
Oh,
encouraging words. I thank you for everything. And I'm your host,
thank you,
Stephen Hayes.
Stephen.
No problem. This is Beyond the Game. And until next time,
Great.
this
Thank
was
you.